Hi, and welcome to the Live Wire, UNC Charlotte's online interactive webcast. I'm Richard McDevitt, Director of Marketing. You can probably tell I'm not Stephen Ward. Stephen's not with us today. He'll be back soon. My guest today on the Live Wire, we're really glad to have her here, is Johnna Watson, who is our Associate Dean of the Graduate School here at UNC Charlotte, and thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Great to have you. And today we're going to talk about graduate marketing. There is a campaign in the marketplace right now for the graduate school that's been some months in the development, and we're very excited about it. It's creating some nice feedback and some nice ripples, and we want to talk about that a little bit today. We'll take any questions you have at via Twitter at #TheLiveWire, and if you'll send those along, we'll make sure that we get to them during the next few minutes, but we'll be with you for about a half an hour. So thanks for having us. So Johnna, let's start at the beginning. What does the graduate school here at UNC Charlotte usually do in terms of communication with potential graduate students, both locally and around the world?
Well, Richard, you know, we have over 5,000 graduate students enrolled, and marketing is something that we do every day, but you know, the challenge is marketing to 4 generations of prospective students. And so we dabble in marketing efforts, mainly social media, online virtual fairs, information sessions, and we have a staff of admissions counselors who attend recruitment fairs, some out of state, mostly in state, and occasionally international fairs. So you know, we find that it's a challenge to have an integrated brand message for graduate programs that support the needs of all 131 of our programs. So you know, how much we do depends on our resource availability, but we were really excited about this campaign because it's very integrated.
Yeah, that's going to be fun to talk about, because when we get to some of the details and the examples, it's going to be neat to talk about. Yeah. You mentioned virtual fairs. When we first started meeting about this campaign months ago, you mentioned that, and I thought it was fascinating what you all do with that. Will you talk a little bit about what those are and how you conduct them?
Yeah. There's actually a two-pronged type of fair. We work with vendors in the marketplace to participate in virtual open houses, essentially. And last September we did one in Asia, so our staff was here overnight because we have to be available when the prospective students in Asia are awake. So that, you know, that was interesting to do it sleepless. And then in our office, we have virtual fairs every month where prospective students can log in and participate in question and answers and talking with admission counselors about the programs that we have available.
And all that occurs in real time, too.
It does, yes.
That's great.
It does.
It's a way to get to knock down the time differences, location differences, and you know, there's a certain expectation of immediacy, I guess, in all of that. People want answers, all those sorts of things quickly.
They do. It's a nice way to have a reach to prospective students all around the world, not just students who are physically close enough to come to campus for information sessions. So, you know, the brand campaign for us has been a great way to focus on graduate education that's pulled out from the general university brand campaign at large. So it's been quite an opportunity.
Well, let's talk about how that started, because it was a few months back that you and I met and began talking with Tom Reynolds about how to kick this all off. Tom Reynolds, the dean of our graduate school. And we brought some folks together to sort of define what we wanted to do. We knew it was going to be a kind of a top-level brand campaign. We expected there'd be some enrollment aspects to it, but it was mostly to raise the visibility of our brand. And then we wanted, there was a lot of discussion around how to talk about that, and the idea that we wanted to use narratives around people and programs. Can you talk about that? Because I thought that obviously had a huge impact on what ultimately got done in the campaign.
The process, as you know, has evolved, and it's not a process that we've embarked on before as an institution to brand graduate education. You know, graduate education is comprised of all the various disciplines that sit across our 7 colleges. So, you know, the way we began was by bringing people together, our campus stakeholders in the academic colleges and the University Office for Communications with you, to figure out how to best proceed in branding graduate education. And so we really deferred to our academic partners in the colleges to identify faculty or students or alums or community leaders that help mentor our graduate students, to identify messages that would represent what graduate education means to UNC Charlotte so that the public can see the value of it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
The thing that I thought was one of the great opportunities here was to be able to work directly with the college representatives, both in communications and on the academic side. So the college communicators that were aligned with those colleges all were involved in this. And it was a nice opportunity to work with them and their leadership to sort of define programs and people to tell the broad, holistic story, which was, I remember those meetings, I'm sure you do too, those were some challenging discussions.
Yeah, very challenging because each of the 7 colleges had to identify one representative to spread their message. And so, you know, for the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, which has numerous graduate programs, how do they decide, you know? And so we really left that to the campus communicators and their deans, their leadership, and then they brought it back to our committee to figure out, okay, how do we use that and how can we most reflect what that person does? And so it was very iterative and challenging at times, but I think that the end result represents the message that we wanted to send.
Yeah, I think so too. We'll take a look at some of that work in a minute or two. We've got some that we'll share. I think it's interesting though that let's talk about in those conversations. Remember when we were trying to build an inclusive, holistic view, if you will, of graduate education here. It's so challenging to try and get that down to 6 or 7 programs. How do you think we did on that? And you know, as a general rule, because to your point, this was a first-time initiative for us.
Right.
You can't solve everything with the first initiative, so you have to really focus on how to begin. So do you think we did a good job establishing that team did a good job?
I think so. You know, looking at the messages that are in the marketplace now, they're very diverse. And I think that diversity of the programs they represent and the colleges reflects very well the diversity of our graduate programs as a whole. It's not an easy thing to market graduate education. You know, and so, you know, the goal is to brand the depth and breadth of the programs that are available for the public at large. And I think that it's a sampling that can encourage people to dive deeper and look at the program offerings we have. So.
Exactly. Let's talk about one of the reasons we decided to organize around a campaign like this. We have an increasing amount of competition in the marketplace.
We do.
Would you like to talk a little bit about how the graduate school responds to that and how you think about that? Because our competition is sometimes not only brick and mortar, it's virtual kinds of competition.
Right. It's challenging, and you know, technology has forced us basically to evolve in ways to market our programs that are very different than the old way of creating a brochure that we mail to someone's mailbox, you know, on their street. And so it takes dollars to advertise, but it also takes continued time and presence in that space.
That's right.
And so, you know, the challenge for us in the Charlotte region has been that we have players in the ball game that are both new and some established, that have graduate programs, and they market them very well, in my opinion. But they have lots of resources to do that. And so, you know, at the end of the day, we have to have a place in that space so that the Charlotte region knows what their public research institution can provide to them. Right. And so it was a conversation that had needed to happen for a while, and we hope that it will continue well beyond the initial scope of this.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because there have been a lot of questions about individual programs in there and the difficult choices that those represented. And I know you did, and I tried to do this too, was remind people that this is the first time we're doing this. The idea is that this is a sustainable process, and we'll continue to talk about how we do this and what that looks like in practical terms for people.
Yes,
so those choices can go on a little bit. You know, I think it's interesting. We think about the increasing number of competitors in the marketplace, And I think in our discussions, what we thought that indicated, and I'd love to know generally what you think about this, is that there must be unabsorbed market capacity in this area, or we would not be being so actively colonized. Is that the way, I mean, is that the way graduate programmers at your competitors' schools typically think about that?
I don't know for sure. I think that we do, and like most things in graduate education, the answer would depend on the program. And so many of our programs depend on a supply of prospective students that can bring their creativity and their knowledge and enthusiasm to a graduate program from this region. And then we have some that have a very wide reach. You know, my hope is that we can expand the brand campaign both out of the state of North Carolina into other regions and internationally, so that we can tap into the talent that's available no matter where that talent's located. So that, you know, the importance of doing it in the Charlotte region is because it's our home. And so it's where a lot of our students come from. And so it's important too for me that people who live in Charlotte know what we offer, whether it's for them or their child or their spouse or their neighbor down the street, you know, so that they can understand what's available to them and how we impact their daily lives.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Initially, we talked about outside of market work as well. And some of those decisions were driven by budget. And as you said, it takes budget to make some of these things happen. The budget for this was adequate, but modest. So some things came off the table. I know we had some interest in other markets in North Carolina in trying to raise our visibility there a little bit. That would be a goal down the road, obviously, would it not?
Yes, we hope to bring the campaign to the Triangle, RTP area, as well as the Piedmont, the Triad. So hopefully that would be a next best step for us, and then bringing it strategically to out-of-state markets, maybe up north.
That'd be great. We'd like to bring up some of the visuals from the campaign now, so you and I can talk about some of those programs specifically, because I think, well, we probably first ought to give a shout out to our agency partner on this. We used one of the university's vendor partners, Tattoo Projects from Charlotte, wonderful creative shop that's done work for us over the last couple of years. They did a great job. So there's their shout out, Rudy and Buffy, if you're paying attention. Very good, very pleased. But this work really turned out beautifully. So if we could talk about them just a little bit, and we've got some of the examples up now that you can look at. The creative focus was very much about people and programs, I guess, is the way you can summarize that quickly. So let's talk about a couple of them. You know, they represent each of the colleges, which is obvious, you know, seems obvious, but it's the right answer for that. And if you begin with it, you know, you can look at graduate faculty like Diane Rowan was one of them. A research person has done extraordinary research in the marketplace here and has been featured in a number of ways. The motorsports component was a graduate student there who is doing some wonderful things around motorsports. And, you know, also, one of our alums works their way in, because we knew when we talked about people, we wanted faculty, obviously, and students, obviously, but also alumni and maybe community leaders. So we found a way to work those in there, too. Mary Ellis, another one of these examples, is the superintendent of Union County Schools, which is, I believe, the 5th or 6th largest system in the state of North Carolina. Can you just react to this a little bit as you saw this come together? Do you think this moves the graduate brand forward a little bit?
I think it does. It you know, it reflects the variety of programs that we offer, but it shows in a really tangible way how graduate education is represented. You know, in terms of Diana, a social worker who is a leader in her discipline, and how she takes her research and can apply it to the community. That's a direct impact for the community. And Mary Ellis in education, you know, we would like to think that we have our students when they're enrolled here that are ours, but once they leave, they continue to be our on, and they champion the UNC Charlotte and graduate education message wherever they go. Our doctoral students are contributors to the body of creative knowledge that is practiced and formed every day at UNC Charlotte. We have 20 doctoral programs, and that number we hope will continue to increase over the next 12, 14 months. And these very talented students in doctoral programs and master's programs across the university work with our over 700 graduate faculty to teach and do research and practice their discipline, both on and off campus. And that really has the ability to enhance not only my life, you know, not always directly, but indirectly by contributing to the body of knowledge. And so I think the messages reflect the variety of what graduate education is at this campus and how it can impact people in the community.
Yeah, I think those are all good examples. If we can go to one of the other sample slides too that shows another group of them. There obviously were 7 for the colleges, but the first few have come and gone. We tried, I mean, you can look at these and quickly see that they balance all the colleges, and there's gender balance in there, and there's actually some international. Several of these people are from outside of this country. But we also tried to balance what we thought were some tried and true kind of programs that people would expect, you know, a large urban research university to provide, and also some newer programs, and I think one of them is represented there with health informatics.
Yes, we have a fairly new professional science master's degree in health informatics, and it's a cutting-edge discipline. Not many schools have it around the country yet. We have a fine one. Mirsad is a professor in that program, and he brings excellent things to the table. But you know, it's a very informed curricula that's engaged and advised by campus stakeholders, off-campus stakeholders in the field, in the industry, that help inform what that curriculum needs to look like, and based on their industry needs. And so it's very new, unlike, you know, our MBA program we've had for many years, and Smokey Bissell is our community leader there, and he mentors many of our students in the College of Business, and we couldn't do without him. And you know, so we have our tried and true programs, and we have our new and cutting edge programs that just reflect our variety.
That's exactly right. Breadth and depth, I think we've got talked about a lot in those meetings. We want to mention David Walters as well, who casts a rather long shadow locally. He's been doing this kind of work in the Charlotte region for many, many years, among our more recognizable community sort of planning, growth opinions are in there. David's quite a force, and a beautiful piece. We should mention that the crowns obviously figure pretty prominently in all of this visual, as the crown of the university from its logo and brand, which makes a nice visual component. But David's piece is wonderful too. Not inconsequential that it's also housed at the Center City building, which is another nice diversity piece of that too.
Yes, we've always considered David our crown jewel, and you know, and he is in urban planning and works with our Masters of Urban Design, and it's interesting that you know, his work impacts people in the region related to urban planning because of the nature of who he is. You know, but students in that program work with faculty to look at urban design around the world, and it's not just in the Charlotte region. And so understanding how the Charlotte region plays out with the rest of the world and evolving economies is really an interesting dynamic. So David is quite representative of the caliber of faculty that are represented in this brand.
Yeah, and the crown looks great on him too, by the way.
He does wear it well.
It's terrific. I think there's one more, if we could bring that one up. And we'll take a look at the last of that group. I should be able to name it off the top of my head, but I can't because there are too many. It's Lisa Rasmussen from the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. This was an interesting choice that I know Dean Gutierrez and Lynn Roberson from that college talked about a lot, and I thought it was really an interesting and inspired choice. Again, balance of tried and true programs, cutting edge programs, things that people think are sort of the expected things, and then a very unexpected choice. This was really wonderful stuff.
Ethics and applied philosophy, and you know, it's interesting because this is a program that's also unique in its ability to sit over so many of our programs. ethics can be infused in the nature of ethics into every discipline on our campus. And like many of our academic programs at the graduate level, it's interdisciplinary. Right. And and that interdisciplinary focus really mirrors the nature of our world nowadays. And so it's difficult to have very linear programs that don't reflect the practice that these students have to move into in occupations and careers when they leave us. So it was an interesting choice by the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, and I think it works very, very well.
Yeah, that was a very inspired choice. We've gotten a couple of questions over Twitter, and I'll ask one of them now. One of these questions is a pretty fundamental one. People like the campaign and they want to know if we plan on continuing this. We should have mentioned it by now. The tagline for this campaign, which points to a website, is evenhighereducation.uncc.edu. So the question was, will we continue that campaign?
We plan to, and we have taken off in the academic colleges and in the graduate school to continue the theme in various and sundry ways sometimes, I think. And our goal is to use it for several years so that we can perpetuate the message over multiple media lines, so that the even higher education becomes a common theme that people are used to hearing and they understand what that means. We're hoping that we can appeal to the chancellor again for an infusion of additional dollars, and that will contribute from the colleges and the graduate school to help perpetuate the message and the brand across the state as well.
Yeah, that's a great question, a good place to start. I think one of the other interesting points there regarding the sustainability of that campaign is it's not just about funding, but it's about delivery and connection. Right. So all of that outgoing messaging points to a single website, which was developed here in-house by our fabulous webcom team, and has been getting pretty substantial traffic. And I think through the first 5-6 weeks of that campaign, there have been probably closing in on 10,000 visits to that site, really long page views on those sites too. So the sustainability of it, I think the team has created a really good template for that.
I think so, and we launched the campaign using a variety of market placements, and so we have we have print in the Charlotte Observer and the Business Journal. We have Facebook ads using social media and Google, and so I think having a variety of placements has impacted the website. The landing page hits, and that's a good thing. It shows that people are coming, they're hearing the message, they're coming to get additional information. We have gotten a lot of really good feedback from people who have seen the billboards. Yeah. It's a very visual, eye-catching thing to see, so I think that's had a lot of impact.
Yes.
I think that the key is continuing the message. Yes. It's time and effort.
Yes. Well, I think one of the things, too, you mentioned it a moment ago, there are a couple of other colleges that have other graduate campaign kind of messaging initiatives going on now. One of them in engineering for the dean there, and Mike Herman, their communications person, has done a nice job of continuing to point people, even though the message is slightly different, might be about a slightly different program, points them back to the Even Higher Education URL so they can pick up more information there.
Well, having the campus communicators involved very, very intimately with this campaign has been critical, and because they're the ones that do have to continue the message. And they were an excellent team to work with, and we hope to continue that effort over the next several years.
Yeah, that'd be great. Well, let's talk about next round of initiatives. We're talking about maybe continuing this campaign into the fall a little bit, coordinating those with some open houses. It brings to mind one of the questions on the website now that was created. We create a form that's a web form where people can get more information that mirrors what you do in the graduate school. You guys gave us great direction on that. But we also provide calendaring sort of opportunities so they can see where open houses are concerned. Can you talk a little bit about what, and we just had this conversation a week or so ago, about what that next step might be to align people with those open houses on campus to try and get people face to face again to get more information?
You know, we find in the graduate school that prospective students want to have a conversation with a faculty member in the academic unit that supports the program, the graduate program director. They also like to have initial conversations with counselors in the graduate school. And we do have office hours, we have the virtual and campus-based information sessions. But when people go to the Even Higher Education website, there's a place that they can request additional information, and we can reach out to them individually to answer some of their questions and inquire more about what they may be looking for. Some of our programs have unique names, and so it's not immediately obvious what that program may be about. And so you know, we have counselors who can help people understand more about what the program is like, both on paper and in practice, and then engage them with the program directors for additional information. So we do plan to have an open house in the fall, collaboratively with the academic colleges, so that the public can come out and visit campus and see us face to face. We'd love to have conversations.
That'd be great. Well, that's about all. We're running out of time for today. I would thank you for joining us. If you've been watching through this, I'll thank Johnna for being here, because
Thanks for having me.
No, really appreciate it. And I'll be really glad to welcome Stephen Ward back to his usual chair next week for this Thursday time. And thank you for watching, and we'll see you online. That's all for today.